I think we should stop being afraid to be who we are as people. And that's something that I've been so grateful for with sort of the women ahead of me that showed me all sorts of ways to be a leader in business. And part of that is just being who you are.
This is Boss Ladies. So on today's episode of Boss Ladies, I have Dawn Halkuff joining me, and she is the CEO of Ideal Protein. She is a total boss lady. She has her boss lady pup join her, which was actually amazing because at one point she talks about advocacy and literally the dog barked and I was like, yes, the puppy's like, yes, advocate for yourselves, which I thought was amazing. But we talked a bit about her career journey. We talked about, the power of positivity. She answered her opinion on the age-old question of should you use exclamation points or not in your emails. I don't know about all of you, but I've gotten some advice on that. So it was interesting to hear her perspective. She shared a bit more about sponsorship and mentorship, which we definitely have talked about on the podcast. So it's always great to continue that dialogue, get new advice on how to be better sponsors and mentors and, how much that can actually directly impact someone. Especially Dawn said that, that has really helped her and shared the story of a time sponsorship really helped her in her career, actually multiple times. And then we also talked a little bit about an amazing group chat that she has with strong, like-minded, career-driven women in her network and how valuable that's been. So I'm so excited to share this episode with you all. I truly hope you enjoy it. Well, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to be on Boss Ladies. I'm so excited to have you and to talk about your career and your career journey and some exciting and fun topics that we have planned.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. And I'm impressed by you. I think I told you that the first time. I just love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's really fun, and I feel so lucky to be able to talk to amazing boss ladies like you and share the career advice for other women out there on this journey to elevate their careers. So it's really fun all around.
Thank you.
Can you start by telling us, a bit about yourself and how you got to your role as CEO of Ideal Protein?
Absolutely. And it's nice to meet everyone. My name is Dawn Halkuff. And let's see. I mean, I've been on this career journey now. I graduated from Penn State. I got my MBA in 1997. So that's been about 25 years now. And I can promise you that I didn't start out to be a CEO. I was on the career journey like everyone else. And, through I will just call it the power of being present. Opportunities just kept showing up for me. I first started in marketing. I ended up moving into innovation, and eventually realized that I had a natural gift for leadership and general management. And I had a mentor, a gentleman that I worked for, Mike, who I worked for at Pfizer, which is a pharmaceutical company I think we all know now. And he said,
It's like trending.
Yes, it's trending right now. And he said, do you want the opportunity to lead sales? And that was something I had just never done. And that was a pretty pivotal moment for me. That took me from running a team of 10 to a team of 200. And really, it grew from there. And the other pivotal moment that happened was when I decided to leave the big company world. And I was a chief commercial officer for a small women's health, a pharmaceutical company, where I learned how to survive in a company not resourced like Pfizer. And it really gave me tremendous confidence that with the right team around you and something you love to do, that you can achieve anything. And working at the smaller company gave me the confidence to go for CEO. And that's where I stand today.
I think that's amazing. And I want to add one thing that you had mentioned last time we chatted, which was originally you were considering going down the path of therapy. Is that
Yes.
is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I did speak to you about that. And it's funny, my uncle, I think, has three PhDs at this point, and he was my hero when I was younger. And because I had this, as I talked about, sort of natural gift for leadership, when I was younger, I didn't realize what it was. I just had natural connections with people. But anyone that's ever worked for me, when I tell them that I was originally going to be a therapist, they laugh because they know that kind of get inside their brains a little bit to help them grow.
Well, I
Yeah.
love that. And I was hoping maybe you'd tell us a little bit more about how that interest in understanding people has helped you be successful in the workplace.
Yeah, I mean, Everything about leadership and growth is about people, and there's so much written about that now. I mean, when I first came into, starting my career, there wasn't as much written, but you can read about, whether it's Adam Grant or Brene Brown and thousands of others, just most amazing people who speak about this. But so one of the things I learned early on was that my natural connection with people and really wanting to understand where they were coming from was really everything in business. Because if you can't
Mhm.
understand where people are coming from, it's really hard to get them or a team to a new place. So I've used that skill set a tremendous amount. And you're hearing my puppy, which is I think a common occurrence these days. So
A boss lady pup.
yes, a boss lady puff, exactly.
I want to talk a little bit about the power of positivity because, I know you've said that that's important to you. And I think sometimes people think that maybe that by being super positive in the workplace, it might actually make you seem like less of a leader, especially for women. So, tell us more a little bit about that and sort of why you think it's important to actually channel that power of positivity and use that more in the workplace.
Yeah, and I think when we spoke last, I don't remember if I spoke to you about this, but actually, I am a strength finders coach. And if anybody's ever used that assessment tool, everything in my sort of top five boxes are all around, influence and relationship building. And one of those things is positivity. And early on, it was almost seen as too female, right? Sort of like
Mhm.
almost like a cheerleader in nature if you were going to be positive. And a lot of the feedback I got early on was that perhaps people didn't think I was seeing the situation clearly.
Mhm.
And that was good advice in terms of making sure that I got the facts out there. But what I found over the course of time is being positive, especially when you're going through something as an organization, it couldn't be more important because
Mhm.
the ability for people to move forward through a difficult situation means that they have to see the vision at the end. And to me, that's all about positivity.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I even worry sometimes myself, like I'm a very bubbly person and I like to be very smiley and stuff like that and I often am in like after a meeting I'll reflect and I'm like was I too bubbly? Was I too positive? Did that take away from what I was saying? And so I like this idea that actually no that enhances your strength in a lot of ways.
100%. And I think we should stop being afraid to be who we are as people. And that's something that I've been so grateful for with sort of the women ahead of me that showed me all sorts of ways to be a leader in business. And part of that is just being who you are.
I wanna ask your opinion on the, like, age-old debate of, exclamation points because I feel like positivity, enthusiasm, I've gotten the advice of like, "Hey, maybe use fewer exclamation points in your emails," and I know that a lot of people have differing opinions on that, so I'm curious what you think.
I use exclamation points.
Yes.
I don't overuse them, but it depends on the email, right? I
Mhm.
actually just sent an email to my team. We're coming to the end of the first quarter, and I'm a big fan of Brian Moran's The 12-Week Year. So I was talking about, hey, we're coming to the end of the first 12-week year, and I was celebrating the fact of everything that we had accomplished that we set out to do. That's an email with a lot of exclamation points. When I send email to the boards, less exclamation points. So it's really depending on the tone I want to bring across.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yes.
So you told me a bit about a group chat that you have with some amazing women in your network, and I'd love to hear a bit more about it and how it got started and how it's been, it's added value to your career.
Well, now they're definitely all going to listen. So, and I love this story because, well, first of all, I'll say I'm very blessed to have some of the most amazing, friend network, but in
Mhm.
particular, with my female friends that I've met through work throughout the years. And there is a group from Pfizer, actually, back to Pfizer. I've worked in other places, but that got together. We didn't all work at Pfizer together at the same time. We were in different departments. It was across medical and digital and
Mhm.
marketing and media. But there was one woman, her name is Anjana, and Anjana was moving to Japan at the time. And she got this group of people together. And that was, I don't even know what year it was. It was probably almost 10 years ago. And since that time, we had a group text going since then that we call the Wise Women. And I will tell you, we are in contact all the time. We're not the best of friends, but every time I have a work challenge, I have a personal challenge, these are the women that I can be completely unfiltered with. And over the years, they've become almost my own personal advisory board. And we celebrate all the good things. And
Mhm.
we're there for each other during the hard times. And I'm just really grateful for them.
That's amazing. And do you like, what is it like? Do you, bring challenges you're facing in the day to day at work? And like, how active are the discussions? And
Yeah, I mean, mostly the conversations we have aren't always so deep. But what
Mhm.
happens is that when you have those moments during the day that are can be overwhelming, and that happens throughout your career, doesn't matter what the level is, that you can reach out and just say, this is what happened. Doesn't have to name names, doesn't have to, could be something small, it could be something large. If it's something large, these women will say, let's get on the phone and talk about it. Something small, it's a lot of, you got this, or
Mhm.
congratulations. They're just non-judgmental. And because they all have such incredible experience from, again, very disciplines, they can also jump in and say, I've been there. And that
Mhm.
is really invaluable because the truth is, and listen, it gets better generation by generation. There are not a lot of women, in the position, at the highest levels of the organization. So it's hard to find other women that it can be both friends and really,
Mhm.
and really have the knowledge base that you need. So they've been amazing.
I love that, and honestly, like, I just feel like sometimes if you don't have that group of women, like, that are in these similar positions, no one gets it. Because like, as you move up and, male-dominated space, I'm a woman in tech, like, as I've moved up, I look around and there are fewer women, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's changing, there's more women coming in the pipeline and through, you know, hopefully podcasts like this and other larger efforts to help women grow their careers, we're seeing more and more women in leadership positions, which is incredible, right? We want
Yes.
equality across the board. But it's challenging. Like there are moments where I'm like, that was such a frustrating situation, but I can't help wonder, is that because I was a woman? Does that impact why that situation was so challenging? Or is that just a challenging situation? And sometimes having other women who understand that feeling to bounce those conversations off where sometimes they're like, I don't think that had anything to do with the fact you're a woman. I think that's just a challenging situation to navigate. Or, that actually does kind of sound like it might have had to do with that. And I'm sorry you're feeling that way. Let's talk through it. So I think it's amazing
Exactly.
that you have this group.
Exactly, and you really don't know. I mean, you
Yeah.
really don't know, and when you're with a large company, like some of the larger companies I've been with, they've had these incredible resource groups, right? So that,
Mhm.
for, all groups, women included. But when
Mhm.
you're in the smaller companies or you're in industries that don't tend to think about that, and more companies are, it is your personal network that you build over the course of years that are going to give you that kind of feedback, because that's the other thing about these women. And in particular this, Anjana that I just mentioned, and she's incredible, but if she doesn't agree with me,
Mhm.
she will say it. And that is, and some of the other women will too. I mean, they're tough, right? But they're
Yeah.
tough in the best way possible because they want you
Yeah.
to be able to go out there and succeed.
Oh, I love that so much. So,
Yeah.
do you have any advice on how to find a group, create a group, cultivate an amazing culture within the group where you can have these discussions?
I mean, the way that this group came about was pretty informal and really sort of centered on this one woman and her experience. I think that, but over the years, I've had, and I have today, other groups of women
Mhm.
that I'm really close to. To me, it happens organically. And
Mhm.
I think it really is at least, starting with two people and, saying, I really want to have a safe space to talk to you. I mean, we do a lot, and we'll probably talk about that today, mentorship and sponsorship,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, what's helped me the most in terms of navigating day to day is when you work with someone that you really trust and you really like, just having a safe space to just ask the questions that you were just asking is like, did I handle that well? Could I have done it differently? Or hopefully in advance, how should I? Right. And
Yeah.
having another woman to bounce it off of, or a man that you trust that trust. I love men, but
Yeah.
but sometimes having those female friendships, there's nothing that can replicate that.
Yeah, and I loved what you said when you were first talking about the group is that this wasn't just like a group of your best friends, right? This was a
Mm-mm.
group of like-minded women who were passionate about succeeding in the workplace. And I think that's
Yes.
important because, sometimes I want to call my best friend and just be like, "This stinks, blah blah blah."
Yeah.
But then sometimes I need to talk to someone that's like, you know, been in similar challenges and can talk through these things with that. Not that my best friend hasn't, but it's nice to have a balance of both, I would say, where you can be emotional and also not emotional and more,
Because
thoughtful.
sometimes your best friend is too close to you. So
Yeah.
even though these women are great friends, actually a couple of them just came and stayed with me for the weekend, which
Oh,
was
that's so fun.
awesome, but it's different, right? It's just a different kind of friendship and that's evolved like incredibly over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I want to jump topics a little bit and go into mentorship and sponsorship. And I think what would be really cool is if you wouldn't mind telling a story you told me about how mentorship and sponsorship actually was so directly impactful in your transition into your CEO role.
Yeah, I mean, I this happened recently because I transitioned into this CEO role just about 3 months ago. And the way it came about is the CEO that was at the company that I'm at now, I called her and she was someone that I had always looked up to. And we worked together at Weight Watchers years ago. She was much more senior than me and just, I thought, an incredible role model for female leadership. And her name is Mel. And Mel was the CEO of Ideal Protein, and Mel lives out of the UK. And when she took the role, was going to be traveling. Ideal Protein is centered, headquartered in Canada, and in the U.S. A lot of the growth in the U.S. And when she took the job, she thought she would be traveling and could do it a ton to Canada and the U.S. But of course, COVID hit shortly thereafter, and it was really hard for her to run the business from that distance. And so when I called her to tell her that I would be leaving my last company, she said to me, we just started looking for my successor. And we had many long conversations. And what turned, someone that was a role model to me, she turned into a sponsor, went to the board, talked me through it, told me where the opportunities were, where the challenges. And this was really not only did she sponsor me to become the CEO, she also had me come on about 6 weeks before she left. When have you ever seen two CEOs in a company work through a transition without ego? And, are there things that I look at differently than she does? Of course there are. I asked her a million questions. I had some different perspectives, but I think that's where female leadership can be really different. We were there to support one another. I still call her, and I'm just so grateful for that because I wouldn't be sitting here in this position, again, without that early on role model, the
Mhm.
mentorship that she provided, but really ultimately that type of sponsorship.
I think that's so amazing, and I'd love to hear more about any thoughts you have on ways that we all can start to sponsor those around us, right? Because there's opportunities everywhere. It's just taking that effort, acknowledging that, like you said, not having an ego, and actually making time to sponsor someone.
And I think Olivia, you just said the right word, effort. I mean,
Yeah.
there are so many people that, you can, of course, spend time with on the phone and help them to where they need to go. But ultimately, sponsorship is, I sound old now, picking up the phone.
No.
Sponsorship is, sending the email to say, I know someone great that would be appropriate for this role. I mean, I really believe that's why organizations like Chief were created or YPO, and because it provides a formal environment to make the effort. And that's really what it takes. It doesn't matter what level the person is or what they're looking for. We should just be lifting each other's up with the effort to connect them to where they want to go. And Mel did that. And I hope I hope that I've done that for other women. I know I have, and can continue to look to do that, because um, that's better than anything else.
Yeah. And so, we're talking about sponsorship, obviously. That's making an active, making an active effort, like the word we just talked about, to give people opportunities to showcase their skills. But we also were using the word mentor. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about mentorship and how anyone listening can get involved in mentoring folks, maybe folks that they don't work directly with or at different companies, but they can still obviously make an effort to help them grow their career.
Sure, and mentorship is wonderful. To be clear, I think the biggest value we can bring people is actually sponsorship, because
Yeah.
mentorship on some level is advice,
Mhm.
and we want to be able to give that advice in terms of, but sponsorship really is what's going to move the needle. And so I think
Yeah.
that I would encourage people to do that. And that doesn't mean you have to be really senior in your career to do that. It just means that you're helping someone else and connecting them to where they need to go and advocating for them, right? Really
Yeah.
advocating for them. What I will say about mentorship, and I had plenty of incredible mentors in my career. Excuse me, Savi.
No, I loved that. You were like, "We need to advocate for them," and I felt like she was like, "Yeah."
Yeah, advocacy. But okay, so, I think mentorship is great, and I've had plenty of incredible mentors in my career. What mentorship does is that, it's almost like back to that therapy session, but it allows you to ask those tough questions of, "Is it
Mhm.
me?" Right? Or, "Should I be acting differently?" Or, "Can I show up differently?" Or, "Should I be swinging for that next step?" And to get, involved in that, I mean, it's pretty easy to get involved within your own companies, but I also think that if you're on platforms like LinkedIn, there's always
Mhm.
people looking for advice. And I've just found naturally over the years, at every level of my career, that there is always someone trying to figure out what to do next. And so
Mhm.
I just spent a half hour on the phone with them. What are they looking for? Some of it is just helping them figure it out. What are you looking to go next? Have you thought
Mhm.
about? And then again, where can I support you in getting in contact with people? So it's pretty simple to me. It's basic connection and networking.
Yeah, and I think also one thing to call out here is, like, any male listeners, you can do this too, right? This doesn't just have to be women looking out for other women, but also, how can men who may
Yes.
have
Oh,
powerful roles or maybe, able to sponsor people, look around you and see who those people are. Maybe you can give someone the
reach
opportunity on
out.
your team to give a presentation that you might have normally given and find
And
ways to, yeah,
I
share the
100%
power.
agree. And I was mentioning my boss, Mike at Pfizer. When he gave me sales, that transformed my career because I never would have thought I could run a large team like that. But he didn't just do that. And I've
Mhm.
told this story before, but it's worth repeating because what he did is not only did he give me the role, but he said, "What I'm going to do for you is I'm going to put a very seasoned sales leader in place, but he also deserves opportunity." And so 6 months after we put him in place, we're going to give him another opportunity, and then you're going to get deeper into sales. So I'm going to set you up to learn, and then I'm going to set you up to do. I mean, he was
Mhm.
so thoughtful about it, and he did it the right way, because without the doing for me,
Mhm.
it's hard for me, to lead as effectively as I can. I like for a period of time to be in the trenches, and have the understanding so that I can help make the team make great decisions. And he did it right.
Yeah, and it sounds like he really set you up for success, which I think is so crucial. And a great part of sponsorship is like, how can you elevate people, and then how can you also make sure that they're set up to succeed when you're no longer
Yeah.
sponsoring them, right? And
Yes.
they're off to the races.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, my last question for you, my favorite question in any one of these interviews, is what do you feel is one of your greatest accomplishments?
Oh boy. One of the things I'm most proud of in my career actually came really early on when I worked for Guinness Beer, which was probably the only time I wasn't in like a women's health centered business. And I was only a couple of years out of grad school. And I remember sitting in this meeting, and I would think I was probably the only woman in the room. So it's a liquor company, so that tends to be male dominated. And we were trying to figure out, how do we get more presence for Guinness in the bars? And there were all these amazing ideas that were coming up. And I was sitting there listening, taking notes. And the CMO at the time said, Dawn, do you have any ideas? And in my head, I'm thinking, nope, I have nothing. But of course, I couldn't do that. So I said, well, I'd just come out of MBA. So I was like pretty attuned, to the marketing fundamentals. I said, well,
Mhm.
you could make the tap bigger. And there was sort of silence around the room. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, the only permanent presence you have in a bar is the tap, and it's small. And he said,
Interesting.
yeah. And he said, well, what would you make it look like? And, if this was if I said to you, well, what do you think it should look like?
Yeah.
The pint. And and then I got to change the Guinness tap around the world, and I actually still see it in bars sometimes. So
Wait, that's so cool.
it's, first of all, so I mention it because it's really the coolest thing I've ever done. But more why I mention it is that I said the obvious thing.
Mhm.
And in the end, I've led my career stating the obvious.
Mhm.
And for me, that's actually worked really well. And so I'm proud of it. And a lot of the other accomplishments that I've had, um, across other companies have been
Mhm.
about stating the obvious. And I think we get too fancy sometimes, especially in the technology world, right? Because there's so
Mhm.
many cool things people are coming up with, but people are looking to solve simple problems. And I've always kept that grounding within me as I've gone through my career.
I love that. That's an incredible story, and
Thank
I can't
you.
wait to look out for it now.
They've changed it in some places, but some places still have the same one, which is
That's
great.
so cool. I
Yeah.
love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on Boss Ladies, sharing your story, and sharing such great advice with everyone. I
Yeah,
really
well, thank
appreciate it.
you. So fantastic to speak with you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Boss Ladies. Check back next week for a new episode. Visit us at www.bossladiespodcast.com for more information about the show, or follow us at Boss Ladies Podcast on Instagram. Rate, like, and follow the show on all of your favorite podcast platforms.